Evening. Good evening, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Let me see. Yes.
Good. Okay, great. How are you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I asked, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, I enjoyed the other one that I went to.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm trying to get some interesting topics coming up. At least I find it interesting.
I do too.
How's Rabbi Barnard?
He's very good. He's
Good.
I'm downstairs working on his computer.
Nice. It may be just you and I this evening. I took off the waiting room if anybody just wants to just hop in.
Mm.
My family just got home from a baseball game, so perfect timing.
That's nice.
But I'll start promptly at 8. Good evening.
Oh, good. Somebody.
Hello. How are you, Bob?
Hello, Cousin Adam. Hello, Miss Sarah.
How are you this evening?
Well, how's everybody?
Doing well, thank you.
Where's your dad?
We had a wedding in the family this weekend, so
Oh,
all
wonderful.
his sisters are in town. Brad Elkins got married.
Oh, wonderful. Tell him Mazel
Yeah.
Tov. That's great.
I will, certainly.
Please.
Yeah.
Good news.
That's
Yeah,
great.
so he's with his sisters this evening.
Sure. Very nice.
Well,
I zoomed with my brother Richie in Ashkelon, and they're fine. But he said if you go but he said if you go 5 minutes in one direction or 10 minutes in the other direction, you'll see destroyed homes.
Wow, they got it the worst this time around.
So they were very fortunate in Ashkelon. At least Richie was.
That's good. Do they have a shelter?
Yeah, they stayed in a very substantial basement shelter of a nearby hospital that provided everything: cots, food, showers, whatever they needed, restrooms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad he was safe.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right into this week's lesson.
Good. I'm gonna turn the fan on.
All right. So
Good. All right.
I need to make sure that I tried a little bit differently this time. I did it on Google Slides.
Mm-hmm.
So let me make sure I can get it up real quick.
Sure.
You can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. And is it in presentation mode now?
It says Adam Ganson has started. There you go. There it is.
Wonderful. Okay. So this week's lesson is going to be about directions and place names, kivunim v'mekomot. So the 4 cardinal directions in Hebrew are tzafon, which is north, darom, south, ma'arav, west, mizrach, east. There are other names for them as well, but those are the principal names for the 4 cardinal directions.
In the south, the Ramah camp in Northeast Georgia. It's the only one in the South. It's called Camper Madarom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So that's how I know. Yeah. So that's how I learned South. Then, of course, with the amulet, we have Mizrah.
That's right.
Because
facing towards Yerushalayim.
Yeah, because we always, for minions, we always need that. Yeah.
So let's get into it. Tzafon. So the shorsh for tzafon, tzadik pei nun, and that's north. And this is one of the four cardinal directions, the directions of the winds of the skies, as is described in Wikimilon, Wiktionary for Hebrew. So we have some sources in the Tanakh. Vayomer Hashem Elai mitzafon tipatach hara'ah al kol yoshvei haaretz. So this is in Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, and this seems to be a bad omen coming from the north, and it's probably referring to the Babylonians coming from the north. Same thing with the next line here, which is Vahaya gvul min hayam hatzar enon gvul demashek v'tzafon tzafona ugvul hamat ve'et pa'at tzafon. In Yechezkel, it's also talking about some kind of invading force coming in from the north. And again in Yeshayahu, ki mitzafon ashan ba ve'ein boded b'moadav. Again, it's talking about, smoke coming from the north, kind of ominous. And in Yirmiyahu again, ki ala alea goy mitzafon, and a nation came upon her from the north. All these references in the Tanakh to the north are kind of bad references, talking about invasion and Israel facing some hard times. So this next one in Tehillim has an entirely different meaning. It says, Alamcha ya'arimu sod v'itiatzu al tzfunecha. So in this context, tzfunecha, tzafun is hidden or treasure. In this line, it says, they will counsel on your treasured ones. Tunecha is treasured. So it also has this other meaning of treasured or the hidden. So some of the related words and terms in modern Hebrew would be Kochav Tzafon, the North Star. You have Tzifun, which is navigational term for the calibration of a map. Matzpen is a compass. Latzuf is to float. And we talked about how sometimes not an entire shorish, but related letters can indicate something, maybe some kind of meaning to the word. And in this case, Latzuf is also somehow related to Tzafon, which means to float in water. So as I was referencing Balashon, this great blog that talks a lot about these types of issues, the direction Tzafon could be referencing a maritime land or a land that floats. You could imagine that the northern lands could be kind of described in terms of lands that are kind of maritime or lands that are, but the next meaning here would be hidden, as I referenced before, and this is the source for in the Passover Seder. We have Tzafun right after Shulchan Aruch. And so basically the tzafun is the part of the matzah you have to go and you have to find it, and in order to continue the seder, you have to the head of the seder has to receive this hidden matzah. So tzafun is also kind of I was always kind of curious of how is Tsafun related to north, and it's referring to this hidden meaning. So hidden also kind of you can reference or think about kind of dark as well. So that's another kind of way to think about the northern lands is dark land. As you can imagine, in the wintertime, it's dark a lot longer than it is in the southern places. So matzpun also comes from this shorish, and matzpun means conscience. And I like to think about it in terms of, your conscience, your matzpun is your compass. And that's fascinating how these words matzpun and matzpen are so closely related. So again, Navumi Tzvonav is another reference to treasures. So I also went with this Tzadik Pei. I ran with it a little bit, and I just came up with some words that I thought were related to Tzafon. So we have the words litzpot, which is to look out. Tzvit, which is an overlook. Tzipia is a view. So in YouTube you have a million tzviot, views. And then you also have this other word that's related to it in some respect, that it's tipiot. Tipiot is expectations. And then another, it would be tzipit. Tzipit is a cover, or is a sheet cover for your bed. So there are all these kind of other related words that have the tzadik pei and maybe related, if we could think creative.
Adam, I thought segula was treasure.
Segula, yes, segula is treasured. Yeah, I'm segula. I think that you have like segulot, which is like basically you have a series of kind of things that happen during certain time frames, or you say a number of tehillim, and that is a segula for a good career, or a good help or protection against people. So I think that segula kind of has the meaning. My family just got home right now, so
okay, good.
So I think segula does have that meaning of treasure, but it also kind of has something related to I would say some kind of it's something with like a connection. It's something that connects.
Would segula be like a person, like you would say that somebody is a real treasure in the community? Something like that a gifted teacher or a gifted rabbi is a real treasure. Would that be in the sense you would use segula?
I would say I haven't heard it in that respect. No.
Okay.
I've heard it very specifically in the terms of segula, as you mentioned, and also the segulot of different recitations of prayers for certain outcomes. So yeah. So let's move on to Mizrah. Mizrah is the direction for east, the direction of the rising sun, and the orientation of ancient maps. And here we have some sources from the Tanakh. V'rochav hachatzer lifat kedma mizracha 50 amah. This is referring to the Mishkan. V'no miyam ad yam ומצפון ועל מזרח ישוטטו לבקש את דבר השם ולא ימצאו. It's Amos. So they're referring to, from the north and to the east, they'll wander about. In Tehillim, we have Mimizrach Shemesh Ad Mavo'o Me'ulal Shem Hashem, which is quite known and referring to from the east, the sun rises in the east, and to Mavo'o would be referring to west. And then we have in Daniel, ומן האחת מהם יצא קרן אחת, יצירה ותגדל יתר אל הנגב ואל המזרח ואל הצפון. And this is some kind of vision referring to kind of a horn that's growing out of the south and to the east and to the beautiful land. So Mizrach could be derived from Zrichat HaShemesh, which is the rising of the sun. So Zricha is the sunrise. Shachar would be dawn, Zricha would be the sunrise. And Lizroach can be described for the sun all day long. It's shining all day long. But the Zricha in particular is the sunrise, not the dawn. Right. And we have a synonym for Mizrach, which is Kedem or Kedma. Kedem, that would be going forward or frontward. And it would be connected to the word Kadima, go forward, a charge. And that would be referring to kind of the orientation of the ancient map facing the rising of the sun. And then we have Negba, Darom, as in Camp Ramad Darom. And so there's some synonyms here for Darom. We have Negba, we have Teimana, and we also have Yamina. So these, I found this kind of interesting. Teimana is a synonym for south, but it's also the name for the Yemen, the land of Yemen. And it is to the right in orientation in terms of facing east if you're standing in the land of Israel. So Imana or Negba, the Negev, is also to the right as you're standing toward the rising sun. So according to Balashon, the Rom has a connection to the root drol, daled resh resh, drol meaning free or free flowing. And the word dar means pearl, or shining light or stunning. And we also have pri etz hadar, a stunning fruit, which would be a reference to Yetro. Dal can also mean to inhabit. So dayar is a tenant in an apartment, or dira is an apartment itself, or housing would be diul. You could say diul tziburi would be public housing. And so this is again Balashon's suggestion that dal refers to a place of light, which I think would make sense. Where if we're facing, the southward is towards the tropics, more sun and light throughout the year. And it also would be diametrically opposed to Safon. And Negba is interesting because Negev is a dry place, but Lenagev, it means to wipe. So the phrase for would be Lenagev hummus. You can sit and eat hummus, and as you wipe it with the pita, it's Lenagev at the hummus. Or a magevet is a towel. And just something that just popped up in my head right now. Tuguva lehagiv is also to respond. The response is also kind of that gimel bet, but I don't know if that's related. and Ma'arav, the west. It's also referred to as Yama because it's standing in the land of Israel. Obviously, the Mediterranean is situated to the west. We have some sources, the Tanakh. ויראו ממערב את שם השם וממזרח שמש את כבודו כי יבוא כנהר צר רוח השם נוססה בו. Yeah, again from west to east, the sun and his honor. And then we have Tilim, כי לא ממוצא ממערב, לא ממדבר הרים. Kind of a poetic line there about talking about the West. ואני הייתי מבין, והנה צפיר העזים בא מן המערב, על פני כל הארץ, ואין נוגע בארץ, והצפיר קרן חזות בין עיניו. דניאל. והוא יחזקיהו סתם את מוצא מימי גיחון העליון וישרם למטה מערבה לעיר דוד ויצלח יחזקיהו בכל מעשהו. I guess this one's talking about how they connected the Gihon, the spring of the Gihon into the city. The direction was west or westward, downward and westward. אוניות תרשיש, שרותייך, מערבך, ותמלאי ותכבדי מאוד בלב ימי. And this is talking about ships going out westward to Tarshish. So I found there to be a lot of different permutations with Ma'arav, with west. So we have, first of all, Erev, which makes sense because, you know, when the sun's is going down west, or evening. But we also have Malvev, Me'uvav, Iruvuv, Ha'arovet, Ma'arbolet, which would be to mix, or mix, mixed, a mix of something, kind of a loose mix. A Ha'arovet would be kind of a loose mix of spices, or Ma'arbolet would be a whirlpool. So there's something going on in terms of mixing. Ma'aravon is totally modern Hebrew introduction. But you have Ilvon, which would be a pledge or a wager, or collateral. So when you go to the bank, they ask for Ilvon if you're going to get a loan. You also have Shtei Ve'erev, which is a woven pattern described in the Tanakh. And you also have the plague of wild animals, Arov, which is kind of referring to a mix of wild animals. You have the Eruv, which is the border, and you have the Erev Rav, which is the mixed multitudes that left Egypt with Israel. And then you have Maghreb, which is another name for North Africa, which refers to North Africa being west of the land of Israel. And the guttural sounding Ain is switched quite often for Gimel. So you have, Azza turns into Gaza, Amora turns into Gomorrah. So you have that kind of mix of letters there. So what does it all have to do with each other? Yechezkel Kutcher, Hebrew linguist, makes the point that Erev has the meaning to enter. And why would that be? Because there was a vision of the sun in the morning coming out of its tent, and then in the evening going back into its tent. So La'arev would be entering back into the tent. So you have Benjamin Clark's description of the ancient people envisioning the sun. And then here's a Chol haaretz yatzak kavam בקצה תבל, מלהם לשמש, שם אוהל בהם. הוא כוחותן, יצא מחופתו, יסיס כגיבור לרוץ אורח. So that's from Tehillim. And it's kind of a description of the sun coming up from the edge of the earth and coming out and going back into the tent and coming out of his chuppah. And Erev Shabbat is the Shabbat entering as opposed to Motzei Shabbat, which is Shabbat leaving.
Mhm.
So all those other mixed words, you enter into a pledge. When you mix something, you let one ingredient enter into the other. When you woven pattern, you're letting individual strands enter each other's space. And then I came up with other words that I don't know if they're related, but I saw some kind of a relation in the letter structure. So we have Aravi, or Altzot Arav, talking about Saudi Arabia. Orev is a crow. Arava is a willow tree. Arava is a savanna as well. I think I made a mistake. Arava is no, that's sheep. Never mind. It's a willow tree. So on to place names. If you're all ready for that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to go over kind of primarily the 4 holy cities, in terms of what the Zohar identifies as the 4 holy cities. Yerushalayim is known by many names, and its element is fire. That's the holy entity. That's the element that is related to its holiness, according to the Zohar. Its earliest name was Jerusalem, coming presumably from the Akkadian deity, meaning the foundation of Salem, and Salem was associated with sunset and darkness. Shalem is connected to the word shalom, but it's also related to the word lishalem, which is to pay. Shalem is complete. Tashlum is a payment. And in Genesis Rabbah, there's a reference to Yerushalayim as Yerei Shalom, God will see peace. And there's other midrashic references to the city of peace. I think that it was kind of interesting that Yerei and Yeriah or Yira are so closely related. Yerei is see, Yira is fear. And I find it to be quite close in terms of the letter structure. And then the suffix ayin is for duplication. And this would be a reference to the 2 hills that it eventually stood upon. So we have other names for Yerushalayim. We have Tzion, and this is the site of the original Jebusite fortress, and it became interchangeable with Yerushalayim during the Babylonian exile. Other words that I thought of that relate to Tzion would be Litzayen, which is to emphasize, or Tzionim would be grades. When you grade something, you mitzayen. The next name would be Moriah. The name Moriah comes from the hill on which the temple stood. The name appears in Bereshit 22, ויאמר קח נא את בנך את יחידך אשר אהבת תצחק ולך לך לארץ המוריה. So it seems to be that this comes from the root of Yereh or Hora'ah, as we spoke about. I spoke about a little bit in my last week's lesson in terms of teaching or parenting. but this is the place where the teaching will come forth, or the parenting will come forth, depending on how you look at it. And Onkelos translates as the land of divine service, in reference to mol, which is the myrrh that was used as a incense, holet, in the holy service. We also have Ir David, Ir Yevus, Nevet Tzedek, the oasis of justice. I like that one. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a neighborhood in Tel Aviv now, is Nevet Tzedek.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have Ariel, and Yeshayahu is the line of God. And then we have Kiryat Melech Harav, city of a great king, in Yeshayahu, and Daniel, and Nehemiah. It's also known as the Ir HaKodesh. In Arabic, it's known as Al-Quds. In Persian, it's known as Kandis Quds. And in the Roman, the Latin was Aelia Capitolina, after the conquest, the Great Revolt. So on to Tel Aviv, just a kind of a quick, not a holy city, but could be holy to some. And Tel Aviv was coined by Menachem Shenkin, totally modern, of course, who suggested that the name was a tribute to Herzl's Alt Neuland, which means old new land. Combining the ideas of old and new, Tel is a city of ancient settlements, and Aviv symbolizes spring and rebirth. There is a reference to Tel Aviv in the Tanakh, in Yechezkel, Suk Tetvav, says, V'avo el hagola Tel Aviv hayoshvim el nahar kevav. Apparently it was a place of settlement during the Babylonian exile. I wonder if Shenkin had any idea about that. I'm sure he did. The next city would be Hebron. The element of Hebron would be the element of earth. It's its element in terms of its holy city nature. It's the location of the Machpelah cave, resting place to Adam Arishon, the first Adam, Chava, Sarah, Abraham, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Leah, the head of Esav. The kind of associative words that I come up with is chaver, friend, chibur is a connection, lechaber is to connect, hevra is a company, and in an Akkadian Semitic, hiberunu refers to storage facilities for grain and beer, which is could have been a reference to what the city was, what the industry of the city was. And then we have Tsvat, which is the element of air. And Tsvat is mentioned once in the Mikra. Vayelech Yehuda et Shimon achiv, vayaku et haknaani yoshev Tsvat, vayachrimu ota vayikra et Shem ha'ir Charma. So in Shoftim, in Judges, it says that Tzvat's name is turned to Charma after it was kind of spelled, or because of this Knaani. And then we have words that also have a connection to Tsvat, but also to Tzafon. I think I went over some of those earlier. Spit is an overlook. Tsvat really is a good place for overlooks. Tzipia, expectation. The tzapot is to expect, and litzpot is to look out. And then we have Tiberius, Tiberia, which is the fourth holy city. with the element being water. And it's kind of interesting that Tiberias is a holy city, considering it was established by the Roman Caesar Tiberius. And there are no references in the Mikra because of the fact that it was established by the Roman Caesar Tiberius. So, but it is mentioned in the Talmud. So the rabbis say, why is the city called Tiberias, Tiberia? Because it sits in the belly button of the land of Israel. Belly button meaning a central place, or a high place. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So the even though it was named after Roman Caesar, the rabbis found a way to say, okay, the reason why it's actually called the city is because it's in a high place. It's one of the highest places in terms of elevation. So that's why I call it such. So do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, it's just so interesting. So, Hatikva came to mind, Eretz Zion Yerushalayim in Hatikva.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. It all.
Ein Sophia.
Yeah. Huh? A lot of things have come together for me since we started this class.
Like what?
Well, that for one, and the direction. I thought about, it occurred to me why we call Camp Ramah Daram what we call it.
Uh-huh.
And just and just the way the words, the different derivations. And
Ram is also high.
Okay.
So Muram, Marim Larim is to lift up high.
Okay.
And it's also Ramah it's obviously the plateau or higher level. So I think it's great. I think and I love the fact they have all the Hebrew learning at such a young age there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much that's what I've got for this week. Next week I'm going to be doing a class on the different body parts.
Okay.
Going from head to toes.
All right.
I hope you can join me for that as well.
All right. Would your family like to say hello to their cousin in North Carolina?
I'm sure of it. Oh, actually, they went up.
All right. Maybe some other time. Yeah. You know where to find me now, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Hope you have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
Wonderful.
Be well.
Yeah.
I appreciate you joining. Thank you.
Take care. Certainly. Thank you very much. Bye, Sarah.
Bye.
Be well. Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome.